Recording.
This is a meeting of the Hampton Board of Selectmen and Board of Health on February 1st, 2021, 6:01 p.m. This meeting is being conducted remotely using video conferencing technology as prescribed by the Governor's March 2020 emergency declaration. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is anyone other than us recording the meeting? Please indicate by raising a hand or sending something through chat.
Let's go gallery. I don't want to see that.
Seeing none, we'll proceed with the meeting. The first item on the agenda is the December 14th minutes.
But you sent different ones. Is it actually the 14th?
No. I sent different ones, and I resent the 14th, the 30th executive session, and January 11th.
Yeah, but then
regular.
You emailed me 3 minutes from January were the ones that we're going to discuss tonight.
Right.
So
No.
not those.
It's these. Pam put this on here, so these are the ones that she considers ready.
December 14th, 2020 minutes.
I got 30th executive on it. You got a copy of the 30th?
Yeah, there's copies of the 3 sets.
I feel like that trees come back to those. Yeah. I got it right now. Blame you all. Exactly how I feel. All right, so I have the 14th, yeah. There's announcement about the gaming commission, the kickoff. So that basically the meeting had announcement for the gaming money, and we went into the kickoff State of the Union department meeting, and I think that was pretty much the sum and substance of that meeting. I don't see anything inaccurate in these minutes, and I'd be happy to make a motion to approve.
There's been a motion seconded. All in favor? Aye. The December 30th executive. Executive minutes. We approved the other one. We approved that short thing before, yeah.
Other than changing at the top, are we in the executive session? The 6th, the 7th, because the meeting did start at 7. Right. I would make a motion to approve.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. The January 11th, 2021.
The red line there, the spelling of Mary Icardi's name has to be changed.
It's an I think, isn't it?
Yes. AICARDI.
Motion for approval.
January 11th, 2021.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. No, either.
Did we actually get an appointment to for Mrs. Duran?
Council on Aging?
No.
No. I think the way we left it, Becky was going to get back to us with a term, right?
Yes.
Is she there? Becky? when we appointed Tina, were you going to get back to us with a suggestion for a term?
Oh, that's possible. I haven't done that, but I will.
Because I don't think we signed a sheet for it. I'm thinking in my mind, that's why we haven't, because we didn't have we're going to appoint her to the position starting such and such, ending such and such. And I think you were going to look at the roster maybe and come back with a number.
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
All right. We approved those, right? Okay. Summers Road crosswalk update.
Still working on that, trying to come up with the best and most functional crosswalk. I've been looking at a lot of examples. You want something that the motorist will see, that will stand out to the motorist. Also, on a busy street like that, the advice that I have is that you really don't want to paint something. You don't want to paint painted white crosswalk because with the sand in the wintertime, it doesn't last long. Now, they have this special tape also. It's a plastic tape that lasts longer, but it doesn't stand out as well as some of these other crosswalks that, like I showed you, the one with the mosaic feature, and the other one was, it looks like brick pavers. I think the brick paver is probably the best. First of all, the mosaic is more expensive, significantly more expensive. But the brick paver is basically stamped into the pavement, and it's durable. The only thing you have to do regularly is to repaint the white lines that go along the side. I've also had another conversation with the outgoing chief about these radar digital speed monitors. And the $21,000 one is really good. And I'm going to suggest that we buy one of those. And also, I was looking at something relatively new. It's a yellow, regular standardized sign, but it has little white lights around it. And when you push the button to cross, they flash. And it's something that a motorist will see. And they're inexpensive. You put one on both sides. And I think that would be, I think that's kind of the direction, but you need to do some more work to come up with, and also have to, when I come up with the final product or design, I have to call the office, the gaming office, and make sure that, yes, that they will agree that that's an appropriate use of funds.
Wasn't there another webinar coming up on this?
Yes, there are several, yes.
There's another webinar coming up for towns
There's two more.
to discuss remediation
Right.
costs.
So the round signs would be in lieu of, a traffic light, or you do both?
A blinker. No, I think they are more visible than a blinker. You see a lot of blinkers. These things stand right out, and they're at the road level. They're not.
Do you know coming up
Chestnut
Yeah.
from Shaker, they had that one approaching the three-way stop, and he's not wrong. There is some visibility to that.
Yeah, so we don't need the traffic light.
No. I think this will work. First of all, it's not that expensive. It's solar powered, and you would buy two of them, and they would be on each side.
Got it.
And you push the button when a pedestrian wants to cross, and it turns on the flasher part of it. And I think it's probably the best option.
And do we have a target date for having this project completed?
I certainly think we can have it by the end of March. Have it in. Well, I mean, I have to see what the construction schedule would be.
You've got frozen ground and wiring too. I think realistically by the end of May, sometime in May, you have delivery times, and I must say, delivery time of electronic things right now is pretty poor. Don, I don't know what your supply chain is like, but we're seeing hits everywhere. So, but again, by the requirement that Mrs. Thurlow told us, the project needs to be planned by the end of 2021, not actually put out. So we have plenty of time to get it done. We want to get it done because it's the right thing to get done. But I think getting it done in March with the ground the way it is. would be
I'll get
right.
it done and signed up. I'll get everybody signed up.
My only,
to do
my
that.
only concern is that I would like it done in a timely fashion
Yeah.
because, it's, this has been talked about for some time and it'd be good to bring some closure to it. I think obviously the weather will dictate part of it and the ordering of the parts will dictate part of it, but we want to keep it on our,
I can say that we'll get the order done, get the contracts signed, and everything will be ready for whenever the contractor can do the job. So,
Any further discussion on it?
no.
The police chief search,
I did draft and post the ad at the police station. I reconfigured the language on the ad after a discussion with the interim chief to give the Board of Selectmen maximum flexibility in making the decision. So I didn't lock in any requirements. I usually I've used the term "this is preferred," but I didn't lock it in. And you're able to make a decision based upon a combination of educational background and experience. So we have 3 applicants at this point.
and they've done the application and the resume. They've submitted those things
I've
as
got 'em
well
all.
as the initial letter.
I have them, yes.
Did we skip a date that we wanted to close?
15th of February.
So then we can think about how we want to do it.
You just get mine to work. We can think about, that's what I thought too. We can think about how, when we want to schedule the interviews. Do we want it to be part of our regular meeting? Do we want it to be a special meeting? And when do we want to have that done so that we can, make a decision. And if we have to go out further, then we would have some time to do that.
Well, I mean, we're fortunate.
Don, you're doing a great job, Don, I'll say. Thank you. We're fortunate that we closed the applications on a holiday on the 15th. So our meeting is actually not until the 16th. So if you want to say, fine, we'll start our interviews on the 16th, that works out great because 15th is President's Day.
I will be surprised if we get more applications. I think it's pretty well known what we're doing. And if you're going to be a candidate, I think you would want to get that message over to the selectmen and the town administrator as soon as you can.
Are we good with starting the process on the 16th then?
Yeah,
I think it is.
that'll be at a
So-
regular meeting, right?
Right,
So you want to do interviews of 3?
3 on the 16th.
3, 30 or 40-minute interviews?
Yep,
We all know
We
the
don't-
people,
yeah. 30 minutes would be fine.
Right.
You know.
And do we want to have the same, well, we can't do the same questions each one because then, so we're just each of us make our own questions. Is that how we'll do it? Okay. And then do we want to use a rating chart or any other way of differentiating, or do we want to just everybody say what they feel?
Do you mean like a scoring system?
If you want to do a
Points?
scoring system, yeah, we can.
We can or we don't
We
have to.
can do that, yeah.
I recall that after we finished the fire chief one, you had mentioned that you had a scoring thing that, you used for yourself. If that's something you'd like to share ahead of time with the rest of the board, I'd be interested in looking at it.
Okay, so I'll drop.
I'll draw up one and give it to us at the next meeting. And then we can say that we like that or we don't like it, or add different categories. I mean, I would definitely have education. You might definitely have whatever. Can you lift 50 pounds? I was interested. I did look.
Marksmanship would be key, I think.
Right. I did look at several different places where they have vacancies and what they put in their thing, and they do have. Can you lift 50 pounds? And are you licensed to have this kind of which we know our people are because they're officers. And there was another one about how can you run this length of, without having a heart attack? So I thought that was interesting.
I think it is critical that we do have the same questions for every candidate, though. Just, you want to keep the appearance that everybody's held to the same standard, so.
I don't
Yeah,
have a problem
that's-
with the same, I don't have a,
Problem with the same questions. I wonder if that gives the third person more of an edge than it does the first and second person. The first person is the hardest because they're hearing the question for the first time. The second person is the second hardest, and then the third person has the advantage.
I'm confused. Are you thinking they're all in the room at the same time?
no, but they're public interviews.
Right, but again, what we've done in the past is that, like we did with the other people, they're in another room, not accessing this meeting by Zoom. They should be, and I think we did this before,
We
we
did that
kept them in
before.
Bob's room.
I think you're correct, but I mean, can we do that?
I think it's quite clear, it's our interview process.
You know, another approach that I think works pretty well is that we come up with a problem.
Mhm.
In other words, you're looking at leadership skills there, maybe 3 problems, so they're different. Say, what would you do if you
In this
faced
situation,
this
scenario.
kind of situation? So, I think that's being done more and more, in addition to the other questions that you have.
Right. So maybe the next
Meeting we have, we should get try to bring our questions and our rating systems. If each of us brings our questions and our rating systems, then we can discuss it. Yeah, we're only 2 weeks away, so we got to do it next meeting.
Anything else on that? Selectmen's goals?
I gave you
Oh, look at.
a folder. It's not a folder, I don't
These
know.
are back to our middle school days.
These are
Isn't
the
it,
middle
Don?
school? But I thought, because I thought, what happens.
I didn't think
to
you could
me-
buy these anymore.
No, I
Left
have,
over,
I have
left
them-
over.
I have them from years ago, but this is easy to lose, and you lose track of what the goals are, and you have to find out what they are, blah, blah, blah. So on the back of it, I put the calendar.
Uh-huh,
So you just
okay.
turn it over. So if this is easier for you to use than going through these things on the front. It says the same exact information, but.
Oh, but if it's
But it goes
chronological.
chronologically, so if we're coming up on the 8th, we know we should have this, somebody should have been assigned to do this, or has completed this, or whatever. I included everything John said, with the exception of the lawsuit, and I didn't include the lawsuit because I felt that it was really not in our domain to bring it to closure. It might be our decision-making process is a piece of that, but it is not something that we,
But it is not something that we should be guided by a calendar. It should be, if the court says you're going to, if the court says that the court case is going to be March 1st and it doesn't, and then they change it to June 1st, then we have not met our goal. So I think in a way, it's out of our bailiwick. These are all things that we can accomplish ourselves under our domain. That's how I felt it. That's how I looked at it.
Yeah,
There's 2 things with the lawsuit, and Bob may have touched on this before. Bond rating was a consideration.
Yes.
And secondly, that, and I'm not sure, there may be a need for, as our consultant, if you will, said, for appropriation, which would be a timetable thing because that would be town meeting.
yeah, but is that a goal?
Well,
It's a task. It's something, it's a task. We have to come up with a solution, and it's something that we have to do. But I'm not sure it's a goal. But it's because I don't know that it's completely within our control. I mean, a goal should be something that you can accomplish. And I don't know that we can accomplish that. We can give some leadership, we can give our position, we can be encouraging or get more money or whatever we can do, but we can't control it. So I think we know, everybody knows that that's in the back of our heads anyways, in a way. It isn't like, but
Well, as we said, it's certainly something it's a fluid document, because look at tonight, we just added the date for the police chief search to it on the back. So please, we should get pencils for each member of the board. For February 16th interviews with, that's how it is. This is always going to be an ever-evolving document.
You can modify this.
That's what I'm saying, the calendar will always be about.
And the casino mitigation project is completed in August.
Yeah.
We've just moved it up to May.
yeah, I think you can change all these, but you just want to know that by that date you have it done.
Right.
You know, and Yeah. But I mean, the hire the police chief, negotiate the contract, and establish the evaluation criteria are by March 15th. So in a way, we're on track with that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're going to do the 15th for the questions and interviews, and then we're going to, and then we have a week
to think about it, then we'll have
Appoint the
one
person,
person, then we're gonna
then we'll
negotiate the
negotiate the
contract.
contract.
Right.
Okay. So anyways,
All right.
keep your little thing.
All right.
And it'll make you feel.
So are we going to vote to, these
Oh,
are
no,
our,
actually, we should vote this because I put adopted.
okay, go ahead.
So I make a motion that we adopt the goals and action steps and target dates as established on the card that was distributed to these board members.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. See, got something done.
Okay, one quick. One E. Is that-
Always-
No, 1E, is that date correct?
Well, I put it for a whole year. This is.
Okay, one E is research options to increase revenue.
No, it's establish an annual
Oh,
goal.
I'm sorry, one E is establish an annual goal evaluation system for employees.
Year and a half from now.
Oh, you got April 18th, 2022.
But I did the dates randomly, and we can change them for sure. This has to go out till next May, to May of 22, right? Because we said we would go for a year and a half.
Yeah, we just-
Okay,
it might be
and-
one.
It can be finished tomorrow if we could do it, but I didn't know if we could. You'd have to have, you have to have an evaluation system set up. You have to have, the staff has to participate in the development of that system. You have to implement it. So it can be finished before that. It can be finished before that.
I'd like
but-
to see, just
Yeah.
because I'd like,
Since we're doing such a job with the Collins Institute, to me, it's after we finish this evaluation of positions, to me, an evaluation system for performance would be the logical next step.
Okay.
I don't see
That
why we
makes sense
can't
to me.
kick it up to
That
June.
makes sense to me. Yeah, so, but if we get it done, by April 21, then we got it done. We just put it off, it's done. This is the target, this is the last day that we can have it done.
Done this way, I look at it.
I have 3 or 4 different performance evaluation
Yeah,
forms.
So there's been a motion and a second to accept the selectmen's goals. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Very good. All right, seasonal employees, highway department.
You should have a copy of the form that the highway department is going to use so that we will not have any difficulty in the future with seasonal employees and unemployment comp. If that form is submitted 60 days prior to the hiring, then the seasonal people are not eligible for unemployment compensation.
Okay. How about the Park and Rec person they've had? They had Marty McQuaid for a few years, and then a new chap last year. Is he classified as a seasonal employee or not?
I don't know.
Okay.
Haven't discussed it with him. I've only discussed this problem with the highway superintendent because that's where we have had employees filing for unemployment comp, and some successfully. That hasn't been the case.
No, but could it be? So
It could be. Maybe it could be.
But maybe that's something that the department head meeting could discuss to come up with a definition of what a
Yeah.
seasonal employee is. Is it somebody that works in the summer in somebody's office?
They have, the state has a guideline for what they.
They've got it, yeah.
definition,
It's there.
And they allow you to, because the person is a seasonal employee, and then you're gonna lay them off, at the end of the summer or whatever period of time, some of them may file for unemployment. But if you file this form and say this is a seasonal employee, then they can't collect unemployment, which they,
So
it's delayed up.
do they have a definition of what a seasonal
Yeah,
employee is?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And also, it affects the wage rates as well. For instance, parks, the kids, if you will, who help out at the basketball courts do not have to be paid minimum wage because they are classified as some type of worker that's not under that obligation. I'm not sure about different park workers, same thing. So perhaps some guidance from Bob to these different departments would be helpful.
On the list for the next That's the-
Any other discussion on that? So Mark's gonna file this, or has filed it already.
No, it's actually good. Yeah, yeah.
All right, the next item on the agenda we have here is Main Street drinking water issues.
Well, we had John may want to report on that.
So Bob and I and Pam have been meeting with Ty and Bond over the past several months. As you're aware, we have 2 town wells that supply remediation for contamination that happened from the salt pile at the highway department. There's one well to the south of Main Street, located next to Academy Hall, that supplies 4 buildings, if you will. There's one well next to the highway department that supplies 3 buildings. The one to the north, the numbers are not good. And the people who have been promised by the town to supply clean water are not happy, and they shouldn't be. So Bob has been meeting with Ty and Bond to look at possible remediation options. And one that is a pretty strong option is to drill a new well, obviously, in an area that will provide clean water. There are 2 potential sources for that. One is at the parkland, and for those who are familiar with the park, we were talking about behind right field of the pony field, which is the upper baseball field. And this is a real town reference here. Yeah, about 300 feet from home plate, if you will. So, and we're talking about a public water supply there that would give you enough capacity to supply the homes affected. As you recall, last year, the town did a fracking, or the Parks Department did a fracking of their well, increased the capacity quite a bit. And when we looked at the numbers from the test, we saw that the numbers coming out of that area were pretty good, analogous to any common home, if you will, in Hamden. As the board has talked about in the past, this is the country. This is not glacier water coming out to every home. Some homes are going to have a little salt. Some homes are going to have a little iron. Some homes are going to have a little manganese. Some will have low water. Some will have high water. That's the beauty of living in the country, if you will. But you shouldn't have high concentrations, and that's what we want to get down to. We want to get a supply that is, so to speak, consistent with the state recommended levels. The other option is to look at the property that Green Meadows is on. We know they have a pretty good well there. They're already classified as a public water supply. The question that would come up there is, do they have enough capacity to provide additional sourcing, if you will? And that's a good possibility, because that was a pretty darn good well that was put in there. And I believe and Mary Ellen may be more familiar with this, when they were talking about expanding the population there, we had to look at the septic field. Remember, that was part of the questions? And could the well handle the extra kids? And there was no question there. So that's something. The difference between the two, it's a farther distance. But the big thing is you wouldn't have to drill a new well. You would just have to run a pipe from wherever the well is. And you recall, I think it's at the end of that driveway leading through woods. Come down that way on town land, crossing the town street, coming across at the fire department, which, what comes to the board's mind? Tapping off for them and taking care of, their as well. So I think that's something that's definitely worth pursuing, with the proper engineers. People who, hate to say it, know more about water than, or forgotten more about water than we know, if you will, or hydrology. I think what Bob and I took back from the meeting with Ty and Bond is they definitely recommend sourcing a new well and looking at the location. Conversations with Gary Weiner, who knows, I think, every inch of the town over many years. And he was a strong proponent of exploring the Green Meadows well. Again, it's already a public water supply. It's already approved by DEP. It would just be a matter of putting a new line on it with a backflow preventer, of course, because you want to make sure of that. And come across and hopefully source the other homes that have the issue.
Well, all you're saying is in response to a letter from Jean McKenna.
From a letter from Jean McKenna in which she had 6 questions, which I cannot address, but I think probably you can, John. Things like the feasibility of Memorial Park well and so forth and so on. But I think we should get back to her, and I would be happy to do it if you give me the information. I could draft something, or you can draft something. to get back to her. I did bring this up at the Board of Health meeting that was today. And Lori McCool was in favor of developing a public water supply because she feels that the first time that Jean sent a letter to us was in 2011. And so this has been going on for 10 plus years, this concern. And that it is, the town has always taken what they thought was the most appropriate action at the time, but turned into being a Band-Aid kind of thing. And then the problem reoccurs and it's at another spot, or it's in the same house or whatever. And so she thought a public water supply might be the way to go. And so if we were going to do that, that certainly would be, I think, more costly than what you're saying, it seems to me, but I'm not sure about any of that. And she would run it down all of Main Street, she said, because she said the problem is going to occur in other places, she feels. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. My concern is that whatever we do, we feel that we have the attitude that it will be a permanent solution and that it would be done in a timely fashion. Because I think it must be very frustrating to have dealt with this for all these years. Mm-hmm. And although she's appreciative of the water that we send her, mm-hmm. and also I think that the fire station has a need for water. So I think your idea of Memorial School, if we think that could be long-term, would be certainly seem sound to me if engineers and so forth can endorse that. But mm-hmm. Can we establish a timeline, or can we establish who's going to write a response to this? Do you think that's appropriate to give her a response?
Don, you were doing a great job, I have to say.
Finally found my calling.
There you go. That Memorial School, Green Meadow School, I think is really, this is something that came up with a conversation with Gary. Lori did make the point to me a few weeks ago that a public water supply is not as onerous as we may have thought when we talked about this before, Don. And it allows, if we do that, the possibility for expansion. You bring up the point of Main Street. And this, of course, that may have been some of the consideration back when we were talking about bringing water into Hamden. If you look at some of the numbers along Main Street, they're all over the place. We did a survey back in, like you say, in 2012, 2013. We took a water sample at Dana Pixley's house. Dana has what you would classify pretty much as glacier water. It is incredibly pure. And then we took a sample at Jane's house. We know where Jane is across from White Birch. And her numbers are higher than some of the ones next to the highway department. But there's no question that it's not a consideration of being affected by it because it's so far away. So at some point, people's water is people's water. You are right that we need to take care of those people who have been affected by the salt pile leaching into the groundwater before we took care of the remediation. But it's not everybody along the street. And I think, to make a project that it's almost like, and Don probably recalls, the landfill, if you will, that's sourced out, I don't know, Jim's on the call. I think it's 9 houses are serviced by it now, but there's potential for 18, and that's how they sized it. So something like that. I think the proper thing to do going forward is to get a couple engineers involved in it, look at a scope of work, if you will, a type of cost. First off, to me, expanding the Green Meadows, because it's already there, it's already under DEP guidelines. If you can get that out of the way first, you save a lot of time. If your DEP has already signed off on the content of the well and whatever, verify it's got the numbers and get a cost on trenching. That type of thing there, and then prepare a town meeting, an article to appropriate the money. And I think that goes back to her other question, which we've done for her in the past. When we did the contract, we went to town meeting and appropriated the money. So the town paid for all the repiping in our house. We do have a contract with the 3 homeowners that are next to the highway department. We have a contract with the homeowners that are on the other side of Main Street, serviced by the Academy Hall well.
I guess my thing would be that if we're going, I guess my thing would be if we're going to do a study with the engineers and, as you suggest, that we should do Green Meadows, and then we should ask them to do the Main Street thing, the main water supply, the public water supply along Main Street, so that we can do a price comparison and see which, first of all, which one would they recommend, A, and then B, what's the cost comparison of them? And C, can they give us a life expectancy, like in 10 years, you're going to have to go with public water anyways, or in 20 years, or whatever. The more information they can give us, and the more intelligent decision we can make, so that people have long-term resolution to this problem, as opposed to having to worry about it, periodically.
Good point. The one thing, the caveat there would be, we have a finite number coming out of the well. Whatever it is, it's a finite number. It's not going to supply,
So this
you know,
would not
everybody,
do-
everybody down Main Street. No. You were looking at a well, gosh, analogous to maybe what they have at the country club, maybe similar to what they have at the Boy Scout camp. There's one, the Boy Scout camp's certified for 1 million gallons a day on Stony Hill Road. And that goes way back. But I mean, you're talking a well like that, not, and that has a circle, and Don, you know the circle thing, what is it, like 1,000 feet for the bigger size, et cetera. So I think the first thing is to first see what we have in place at Green Meadows. See if it has the numbers, which should be on file, to provide additional. And I think the number is 200 gallons per day per household, something like that. It's something like Gary gave me a number like that. So that's something to look at. Okay, so see what the rating is for that well. See what you can get out of it. We're looking for a number that satisfies the school and then would have additional capacity for the 4 homes we're talking about. Plus, could we take care of the fire station? Maybe we can take care of the town hall. So perhaps you're looking at another 1,000 gallons capacity out of it. But we need that from whoever the well company is. Could be Joe Dilk, could be Quabbin, could be JW, I don't know.
I think that's a good start, but I also think that would be maintained so that we have a comparison. Because if we don't have a comparison,
I think that sounds like the way we would go. But I think if we don't look at a public water supply in general, just to know what is the cost, what is the timeline on it, is it possible to do it? It may not be possible to do it. I don't know anything about it, except that Lori thought that it was a good idea, and it's the route that we should go to solve the problem long term. And I don't see any harm in getting that information, and then we can make a decision on which we think is the better choice.
If you do a public water supply though, then does that mean that the homeowners have to pay for the installation and then are billed?
she thought they might. I asked her that same question, and she thought that they might, but she said, I'm not an expert on this, and you have to talk to people that know about it more.
Because not every connection is affected by, is a perfect remediation person. So if you're saying we need public water along Main Street, that's all well and good, but 80 to 90% of the people on Main Street are not affected by any problem with the highway department. They just want maybe a source of water.
Right. It's right, exactly. They're two different problems.
And then you're into, well, if we're doing a water supply for people that aren't remediation, why are we doing a water plan for the town?
I did bring that up too, because I thought it was the same as your issue. It's the same issue, really. Why are they getting it and not us?
Right.
Or do we even want it? Or that. So it does present its problems, and it isn't something I would jump at doing.
Indeed,
but
we just paved Main Street.
Yeah, exactly.
We just paved Main Street.
So I have a question. The town apparently looked at purchasing water from Quabbin or Cabo Mountain a couple of years ago. Prohibitively expensive.
It wasn't a cost
To
of
put the
water.
line
It
in?
was it was more like development costs instead of the purchase price of water. The town doesn't pay for it. The usage, right? Yeah.
So it'd just be the installation was too
Right.
expensive?
It was going to be a huge sea change for the town of Hamden, I would say. Going into it's a different dynamic for a small rural town.
All right. Well, we have a first step.
Mm-hmm.
What's the first step?
And the first step is
First,
John is going to.
I would say the first step is for Bob to reach out to people who know what the number is at Green Meadows, and let's take a look at that. Let's see, A, does it have the capacity? Does it have the certification? And if it does, to me, it's a reasonable expansion for that type of use. Mark is not on the conversation, but if he was, I think he would tell you that trenching for and I don't even think that we're talking a 4-inch line here, the trenching along that and along the driveway, across the street, over the highway, I'm going to guess 1,500 feet, maybe 2,000. We're not talking, we're not talking $100,000. Because you've already got the distribution head at the highway department. So basically you're running a hose extension from the well to the other end of the hose.
I know.
Right.
Sounds good.
Right. Well, let's make it on the house isn't working, you need one going to the other end of the house.
Okay, so can you get back to,
I know.
can you get back to James Roderick with the answer to these questions? Or do you want?
Bob,
Sure.
do you want to draft?
Can you draft something and?
Yes.
Because you maybe know the answer better than I, so that's step one. Step two is we're gonna look into Green Meadows and get the capacity, and then proceed on that. And we'll hold off on, step one is that Mr. Is this one working? Can you hear me? No. Step one is,
That one seems to be working. That screen.
All right, so
We got it.
with the board consider then at this point tentatively putting a placeholder on the Springtown meeting warrant for water remediation.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
And that to me shows the people that we're committed to doing the right thing. Right, okay.
Whoever S's, the mic's not working.
But that is good. Okay. Thank you, iPad.
Okay. All right, got that resolved.
All right, got that fixed.
Whoa, nice. I think
Where
we're
are
good
we?
for the,
So we're a little early for Wilbraham. but
Okay, so
we've
why
got
don't we go to the appointment of Christopher Gobiel as part-time reserve police officer?
He has joined the session here. I saw him join.
All right,
Gallery,
where is he?
gallery.
Christopher, you there?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay.
I can't see you.
Can you see me now?
There he is, okay, all right.
Well, based on the recommendation of the acting chief, Marchese, and the endorsement of Chief Farnsworth last week, it seems appropriate that we appoint Mr. Gobriel, is that what I said?
Gobiel.
How do you pronounce your name?
Gobiel?
Gobriel? Gobiel? Well, whatever.
Gobiel.
We appoint him. Huh? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, sir?
So my name's Chris Gobiel. I've been working in Hampden as an auxiliary for a little over a year. My full-time job is actually with Verizon. I'm an operations supervisor with them. But I live in Wilbraham, born and raised, and 29. So.
Ooh.
29 years old?
Yep.
Jeez. Let's see.
1, 2, 6, 7, 8. Are there a bunch of pages missing?
No, that's what, those are the pages.
Usually there's a little more back.
The education here, right?
Oh, we went to win it.
So the New Hampshire University.
I love their ads.
Yeah, good.
Okay, so.
There's a motion. Any second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hey, just while I have you here, this application that we keep getting, okay, is first of all, this is
Oh, that's his neighbor.
oh,
That's why we throw
okay,
So we
okay.
don't have any, where's his
Look.
page of information?
Okay, this here, this number 2, Bob, look at number 2. You can't ask that. I pointed that out before, so we can't ask that.
But there's also, there's no page here with Chris's name, address, or anything.
No.
There's the neighbor. I know more about the neighbor than I do Chris.
This was emailed to me.
Your neighbor Justin looks good. Thank you.
Yeah,
We hired him, sorry, Chris.
he works at Verizon too.
Well,
Oh,
I have no qualms about Kristen.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, just
Anyhow, so,
We can-
no,
It also-
that number two, we can't, the number two, we can't.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
okay, and then also I think we'd ask the chief or both chief for a inventory, if you will, or personnel map of who we have for officers, reserve, and auxiliary at this point. I know he wants to get to a certain number for reserves, and is he close to that?
I wanted to discuss the IMA and the, which is the next item on the agenda. I just received the revised IMA at 7:50 last night. And I think that I haven't had enough time to really look at it significantly. However, the issues that I have brought up in the past, I remain concerned about. And that is the wording within the document. When it says that it will be, it uses the word substantial for saying that the terms will be the same between Hampden and Wilbraham. And if they are substantially the same, that indicates that those services do not have to be the same because they only have to be substantially the same. So there are things that they don't have to be the same about. It means that when it says that, when it goes into the procedures and it says that it will use every effort to use the same procedures, that means that they don't have to exhaust all the efforts. The procedures don't really have to be the same because they've used reasonable efforts. I think that wording is I'm only a paralegal, so, but I do know how to read contracts, and I do know that the wording on contracts has to be very tight. I understand that the two lawyers from Hampden and Wilbraham have approved of this wording. By the same token, I have talked to two attorneys, both of whom have said that this wording should never be in a contract. It opens us up.
Would you like to have those two attorneys come and explain it to us?
Well,
Would I like to have them come? Not particularly, because I don't want to pay them, but and they were friends. So I'm just said to them, could you review this and let me know, what you think? And so it was sort of a de facto kind of informal kind of reaction. I think that if we've learned anything from the past, we've learned that contractual language is crucial. And I think that this is having these two so blatant usage of, it's just common English. I mean,
What would you like to put in?
I would like to move to strike the word substantial in item number 3, line 12, page 2, to strike it completely, and to replace the word reasonable in section 4C, line 3, with the word every. So that substantial would be stricken completely.
Okay, so you want to use every, so what would every be?
every effort.
So what would it be? If I did 10 things, would it be 11 things, or 12 things, or 15 things, or no things?
Everyone that we could come up with.
Everyone,
Yeah,
so,
the board would,
so
these are
under-
the efforts that you must impact these board, you must put in place these steps to show that you have shown every effort. I mean, reasonable is every effort is a lot clearer than reasonable.
but I guess what I'm saying is there could be 1,000 things, and so it would never be resolved.
I'm not sure there could be 1,000 things, but there could be a number of things. But there is always going to be a finite number.
Well,
It is not open-ended.
yeah, but you're saying is whatever we could think of, or whatever they could think,
Whatever the board.
whatever they could think of, or whatever the board could think of. So I'm trying to figure out, what's the number? 50 things, 100 things?
I think
You have to. I think that we'll make reasonable efforts to use the same procedure is not the same as saying we'll use every effort to use the same procedure. It's such a qualitative word. It isn't defined. It isn't. I just don't think it's usable. I think it just misrepresents. And it doesn't protect Hampden. I don't think it protects Hampden. And that's what I'm interested in doing.
Why wouldn't it protect Hampton? Well, give me this.
Scenario that you think would happen that would.
Well, substantially the same is a little easier to do than every effort, but substantially the same would be
If they decide that, or if it is decided that they're going to have three dispatchers working all the time, okay? One would be for Hamden and two would be for Wilbraham, okay? And then they decide to change and they're going to put two for Wilbraham. How did I say? I can't remember how I started it. Two and one, and then they go down and they decide they want to change that number and they want to make some different arrangement, okay? And if it's not substantially the same, how would you?
Because we have the board of directors whose role is to agree on all those things. They have equal votes. Our fire chief, their fire chief, and our police chief and their police chief.
And this is a one-time. This is them at the beginning writing the procedures and the board coming up with the procedures. So it's a one-shot. They're making, this isn't ongoing like a weekly effort to review. They're coming up with the procedures. I suppose you could say that every effort to design the procedures to be good for both. Fine, done, and there we are, move on. This is, you see, it's at the beginning. Shall develop the written procedures to start the thing. Every effort shall be made to make sure they're the same. Good. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys, for your work. The substantial one is, what page was that on?
It's on page 2, number 3.
2, 3.
Towards the bottom of the emergency communication service rendered.
The emergency communication services rendered to Hamden shall be substantially the same as the emergency communication service rendered to Wilbraham. Well, substantially the same means there are things that will be different because it's only substantially the same. It is not exactly the same.
It can't be exactly the same.
But it infers that there will be differences.
But maybe it can't be exactly the same.
Well,
that might be something for the dispatch people. Well, it can't be the same because you have so many calls coming out from Hamden versus him, so therefore you can't be at the same number. So substantially is going to be, you're going to have the same ratio. You're going to have the same.
You'll have the same ratio. You'll have the same rough percentage. But because you're a smaller community than ours, you can't be exactly the same because you're not the same. You're not the same. I see the other one, the reasonable efforts, every effort. Look, they're writing the procedure. They'll make every effort to make them analogous. The two groups, if you will, which are the chiefs, not us, will work together to make it right. And that's fine, whatever. But the substantial thing, that's us inserting us
in the operation of the dispatch thing.
Last
Putting ourselves in place of Anthony and the chief, et cetera, and how dispatch is organized is not right. I don't have experience in it. Don, you don't. I'm not sure you do. So that's my point, is that I'm not sure we can make that thing that substantially.
well, I do know that down the road, if we had discord between the two towns and this came to an issue, those would be the clauses that would be cited in a lawsuit. I know that because those are the most tenuous clauses in the contract, as I read it. Okay, those are the ones that jump out at you immediately because they're not measurable, they're not concrete, they're just difficult clauses to deal with. And I know that is what you want to do in a contract is protect yourself in case things go south. That's your goal. It isn't just to have nice words and to have an agreement and have your signature there. It's a protective, it's a document to protect you and to say that you're going to be well taken care of because you have something in writing. And I think that you don't put anything in there that you think could be used, that may never be used, but can be used against the town.
So, I'd like to ask Mr. Gentile, could the two ECS services be exactly identical? With the guys on there.
Hi, can everybody
It's
hear me?
unmuted.
Yes.
Okay, so the services as in the same, I mean, it's the same with anything that you change or you do differently. If you went to Westcom, would they be exactly the same? I don't believe so, but we'll try as best as we can to mimic the exact same type of service that Hamden gives the Hamden dispatchers now. I mean, we do everything pretty much the same as it is already. It would just be at a lower call volume in Hamden. So I don't think much would change, if anything.
Well, let me just ask you this, because here's the thing. Emergency communication services rendered to Hamden shall be substantially the same as services rendered to Wilbraham. What are those services? Answering calls and dispatching, basically?
Yeah, I would say answering calls,
Is that the
radio
definition?
calls.
Is that the definition of ECS?
I believe so. I haven't seen the revised IMA yet, but emergency services would be answering 911 calls, telephone calls, radio calls, EMDing, dispatching the fire department, services that are provided already by the dispatch service now.
If I could just describe the sequence here. Our readiness to go forward dates back to, let's see, I think it was around the 19th we were ready on the 19th of January to go forward. I was told by the town administrator in Wilbraham that they had not had a report back from town council, from Wilbraham Town Council, and that more time was needed. Okay, I remember mentioning that to the board. Last week, Nick said that they had received a response from town council, and he said it would be a good idea if your attorney and our attorney got together, ironed out any differences. He didn't identify any differences, just said get together and come up with an agreed upon version. So I had our counsel meet with Mr. Riley, Attorney Riley, and they met last week, I believe, on Tuesday, and they may have spoken again on Wednesday. The version that I sent to you, which I think I sent on Thursday, maybe Friday, is what you have in front of you, with one exception, and that is they discovered on the weekend, I guess Rose discovered on the weekend, that we still had Chief Farnsworth listed as our chief of police. So we had to change that. And then I had to plug in some dates. I had to plug in the date February 1st and so forth. So a couple of little tweaks, yes. Right, yeah, so we changed, that was just changed on the weekend.
Okay.
So the version that was sent out Sunday is the same version that you had earlier, except that, and I did mention to them during the week, the two issues that Selectman Glover has. And when I saw that they had not made any changes, I asked Rose, you didn't make any changes there. She said that the two attorneys felt that the governance system, which was equal, our two chiefs and their two chiefs will govern the system equally. Plus there's an appeals process. She said she thought they both agreed that they thought that was enough authority in the document to make sure that the services that provided to Hamden are in fact equivalent to what's being provided in Wilbraham. So that's where we are.
I think that considering the reservations that I have and what you have found out, I would like to make a motion to keep dispatch services in Hamden.
What have you found out? I missed it. You're right. I understand your reservations. I didn't understand the part about what you found out.
What Mr. Markle just said, what he found out from the attorney, what is bearing in mind what he just said. I could have said it that way.
Oh, I thought he said that both attorneys felt. I thought he said both attorneys felt the language was sufficient.
Right. I think he did say that. He gave the timeline of what had happened.
Oh, okay.
He said that, yeah.
Should we motion then?
Is to rescind
To
our
keep
vote,
dispatch services in Hampton.
to rescind our vote, or are we?
To rescind our vote?
It could be, yeah, it could be to rescind our, yes, you're right, John, to rescind our vote and keep dispatch services in Hampton.
I'll second it. Any further discussion? Any discussion?
I think that's the only way that I can see going forward that we can protect Hamden in this relationship. And I think that it's,
But you would have no reservation going to Westcom.
I don't see it as the same thing.
Why not?
I thought the, I made the motion to go to Westcom because I thought the other two selectmen felt that they wanted to regionalize with somebody. And so if that were the case, given the choice of Westcom or Wilbraham, I thought Westcom was the better option. So I made the motion to go to Westcom. That now we are in a position where I think that I don't think that this contract protects us, and I will say, and so I'm making the motion that we rescind that vote and keep the dispatch right in Hampton.
So you made the motion to go to Westcom because you thought we were for regionalization, but you weren't for regionalization.
I was willing to give it a try. I was willing to give it a try.
And in the Westcom contract, if the town, if we signed a contract with Westcom, if the town didn't appropriate the money, they're under the, I think it's under 6A 18, that the assessors would have to levy the amount of money anyhow. Yeah, they take off the cherry sheet. Okay, so we have a motion to rescind going to with Wilbraham. And there's motion second. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Donald?
Okay, I'm bringing up the code here to go into the meeting with Wilbraham.
Okay, did we tell people, are we leaving the Zoom on?
Yeah, it's on.
So they're going to be
Oh,
able
I'm
to,
sorry, they're on. This is a go to meeting.
No, I mean, so did you close the Zoom one?
No.
so they can see this?
And the Zoom people hear us?
I'll show you.
We can tell quickly here.
Shut you right down.
You
Got
want-
a message from Carol, you guys joining us? Yeah, we're trying.
No. Oh, whoa. Big crowd.
We've had a slight decrease in the number of cases from last week when I reported. The COVID's gone, but it's still out there. It's just, I think across the board, what we're seeing in Massachusetts is a slight decrease right now in active cases, current cases and active cases. Right now, there's 82 that are active current cases in town of Wilbraham. Last week there was 92 at this time. That is comprised of 12 students from the school district and 15 household members. And then there's also 6 members of the local Western community that are involved with that 80. And there's also 12 young long-term residents. And I comprise cases on positive management cases.
I should have been one out. Okay. I did unmute myself. Sorry.
In the age breakdown for right now, I've got 25 in the under 20 age range category, and then the next that category. And the next highest is in the 80s to 89. There's 10 in that category. And most of the other decades, they've been around 8, except for the 20 to 29, there's 5 in that category. Total confirmed since we started this pandemic, we are at 1,046 confirmed since last March when the pandemic started. And that's confirmed cases. The last 2 weeks, there's been 115 over the last 2 weeks. And the breakdown of that is 48 and 47 for the individual weeks respectively. So the case counts are going down a little bit, but we're still there. Last week when I reported the DPH numbers prior to the state reporting them out, we were still over that 5% positivity rate. So Wilbraham is still in the red. We'll see what the numbers come out this week on Thursday. That's what we have. That's what we have right now for cases.
Okay, thank you very much, Joe. Our health director, Lori McCool. Lori, are you on the call?
Yes, I am. Hi, good evening, everybody. And nothing right now to report. I'll just maybe be in part of the discussion we talked about the clinic, but other Board of Health stuff is going as it has been over the past couple weeks.
Very good, thank you. Let's see, dispatch. Anthony, I see you there. I saw your name a minute ago. Go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you. We're at 100%. We're status quo, and we will be vaccinated. Most of, and I believe all of our dispatch will be vaccinated by the week of February 8th as well, with the fire department and most of the police department.
Okay, very good. And not last but not least, Chief Zolo, how are things with the police department?
Everybody's healthy. Status quo. We're waiting for our second shot. Roughly about 75% of my department has had their first shot.
Okay, very good. Excellent. Okay, I saw Mr. Markle is on the call. Are the other selectmen here yet?
We're all here.
We're all here. We're all here. Cozy. We're on Mr. Markle's thing, Zoomy thing.
To our meeting, and I guess we have 2 pieces of business to conduct. One would be to sign our agreement for the dispatch. I'm sorry, I'm losing my place here. Okay, so the intermunicipal agreement is the thing that we'd like to get signed tonight. It's my understanding that everyone has had a chance to look at it. I want to thank our respective chiefs and the nurse and council for reviewing the agreement. I think everybody's had a chance to look at it. I'll ask if there's any other questions or concerns that anybody might have right now before we go ahead and sign the document.
Question or concern? What? Can you hear us, Bob? Okay. All right. Can you hear us now? Okay. All right. We've taken another vote this evening, and we agreed to the IMA, so we're prepared to go forward. And then I know there's a lot of logistics to this after this, so I hope both town administrators are ready to to get on the horse and ride it.
Yeah, buckle down. Okay, I was just wondering, do we have Nate DeLong on the call, friend? Nate is here. It would be Nate. Could you give us there he is. Give us a feel for when things initiated, as this is dependent on communications and getting this account connected. So can you give us a rundown on that?
I actually, can I defer to Tony for just a general summary? I can get more technical aspects, but Tony's got he's been doing anything with our 911 rep. He's got a pretty good plan of So it's a little bit that maybe is causing feedback. Can you just mute that temporarily? And then I'm just going to mute you, Marco. I'm just going to mute you temporarily, and I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
We're just getting a lot of feedback.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. So with any type of regionalization, there's three major components: radio communication, CAD, and telephone, non-emergency phone. So the radio, we had a meeting with our radio vendor about 2.5 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago or so, and we have a plan in place to put up radio communications in the near future with our radio vendor. Further down the line, there will be more solid communications. But right now, to move forward, we have a plan set up for telephone communications. Right now, Camden, I believe, is in the middle of upgrading their software for their white phones that they have in their stations. So for now, we will forward telephone calls from the town of Camden into Wilbraham. So they'll forward onto our telephones as well. And then we can come up with a plan to have the calls forwarded back to Camden if somebody needs a voicemail of an officer, etc. And that comes to the third part, connectivity, internet. So we have a plan and we have connectivity through Charter Spectrum right now between Wilbraham and Camden PDs for any CAD or any type of information sharing that we need connectivity through the internet. So we do have those three parts pretty much covered up. I do have the radio vendor that will give us a quote on getting the communications, the radio communications up, hopefully within the next few days. I'm hoping for it tomorrow. That will open, after the IMA sign, that will open us up to some funds from state to get this started. And once it does get started, it's going to go pretty quickly.
Okay, very good, Anthony. Just what is CAD?
I'm sorry, computer aided dispatch, the computer system that we use to dispatch police and fire. So we're going to host it in Wilbraham. We're not going to merge just yet. We'll host it in Wilbraham, so we don't need that much connectivity right now with Camden, but we do need to be able to speak to their CAD from our dispatch center.
Okay. I'll just open it up to my fellow selectmen and both towns if there's any questions that they might have.
Is it your mic, Ben?
Issues at all in the initial
I haven't unmuted myself yet.
No, I'm saying,
It won't. It will not. If anything, it may make it quicker.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So
I mean, on
So I
the,
guess the next thing to do is for us to sign documents and transport them between towns so that we both have executed agreements for both towns.
And one quick question, Tony, John Flynn. Tony, John Flynn, the start date is what? I know you're talking about prep time, et cetera. When does the switch get thrown?
I'm going for June. I'd like to do June 1st, but fallback would be June 30th. I know 911 wants it done as fast as we can do it, so that's what I plan on doing, as fast as I can do it. So June 1st and June 30th will be the absolute latest.
ask about the fiber optic.
Yeah, the fiber optic run would be done before then, Tony, or?
The fiber line will probably be done later in the summer or in the fall. The reason for that is the state one wants us to apply for a development grant, which I need to turn in by March 4th. And then they'll usually send award letters in July. Then we can start with projects.
Okay, my next question is then, based on your start date, et cetera, are we trying to get the money part, the financial part on the fiscal year? Or does the state have a different calendar for this?
So the development grant will be different than like startup funds that we would request of the state to get this actually started. The development grant would come later after July 3rd. And we would get I would apply for some funds or several funds for that project.
Right, but is this a fiscal year grant then? I mean, we're talking about year 1, year 2, year 3. Is it always going to be July 1st to, or is the period of this, I guess my question is the period of the contract is what? Is it July 1st of 21 to June 30th of 26?
That's usually how the development grant runs.
Mhm.
Usually they have the applicant will scroll and then they award them July or August. But this year they moved it back a year, so it's usually the fiscal year.
Okay.
Tony, one more thing. In the IMA, the next step for the town, and the only step that I am aware of, is that our selectmen need to send a letter to the state 9/11 office requesting designation of Wilbraham as the PSAP for the town of Hamden. Is that your understanding?
I believe there is a letter in the part of the development grant, a letter of invitation, which I can print out and I can.
Oh, good. I don't have to write the letter.
To,
Fine.
you, Mr. Markle, and to our town administrator as well for it to be signed.
All right. Okay.
All right. And Bob Russ, I know there's 2 things you want to talk about. What was the other thing? Oh. Ask Bob what the other thing you want to talk about.
Did they take their vote? I wonder.
Oh,
Have you? What do you need to do now? I mean, we've taken a vote here. I assume our selectmen just need to sign the document, which we'll sign 2 documents, send them to you, and if you sign 2, copy and send them to us, and we can exchange 1 and 1.
Yeah, at the town line.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah, at the town line with a police escort.
At the town line, Bob.
I'll go ahead and take a motion, Bob, if you'd like to present. Bob, are you there? I'm here. Okay. Sorry, Bob, sorry. Yeah, Bob, would you like to make a motion, please? Let me find a motion, Bob, I'm sorry. Okay. All right, ready? I'm ready. Move to approve and execute the intermunicipal agreement for emergency communications and dispatch services by and between the town of Hamden and the town of Wilbraham as presented. Second. Roll call vote. Chairman Russell. Aye. Selectman Boylard. Aye. Selectman Brennan. Aye. All right, very good. Our next business has to do with the COVID clinic.
Yeah.
I think the objective here tonight is for us to be in agreement between our 2 boards to give the green light to the principal players, meaning our health people and our fire departments and police departments to proceed with the development of a COVID clinic. And I talked about one. Okay. We gotta love these Zoom meetings. So to that end, I know that Jill Consolino, our health nurse, has a PowerPoint presentation that'll kind of give us a very good overview of the progress that's already been made and what steps need to be taken in the future. And it probably give us a good jumping off point to answer questions. So, if you're ready, I'll give you the floor.
PowerPoint away.
Yeah, let me just figure out how to do this again. we did it earlier and it's gonna click right on it.
There you go.
All right, so good evening, everybody. This is a PowerPoint that I had made up and sent to the corresponding board of selectmen to
conducting a COVID-19 vaccine clinic with interregional effort with Camden
I'm not sure.
to be able to offer the vaccine to eligible residents with local partners to help provide staffing. We're anticipating this to start February 22nd of this year, and that's based on getting every green light from both boards to do a regional effort, as well as paperwork that has to be filed with the state. And then we anticipate being able to provide the Moderna vaccine for all residents. Johnson is going to be applying for emergency authorization of their vaccine, so that may come at some point too. But right now, the Moderna vaccine has been indicated for a lot of the local clinics. So this picture here is just what's shown on the state website right now of where we are in phases, and that's the state has determined who's eligible and when. Right now, anybody in phase 1 is eligible for the vaccine, and today we just officially started phase 2, and those bullet points will dictate who is eligible first in phase 2. So starting with today, anybody age 35 and older is eligible for the vaccine, and then we would go to 65 and older, anybody with comorbidities, and then into education staff and trans workers and that kind of stuff. Phase 3 is not going to start until probably April, and that's general population, but that would be down the line further. This is just another picture of where we are from the state website, and the hyperlink is a direct link to this, where this is found on the state website. What you'll see on this page is there's a vaccine location map on mass.gov. If we were to go forward with this planning process, Wilbraham and Hamden would end up being a yellow star, which is a local clinic. And what that means is it's open to specific group of residents. We can identify just the residents of Wilbraham and Hamden. There would just be specific links to just the residents of these two towns. We can run it as a public clinic or a private clinic. I'll get into that a little bit later. But this is a map from last week, so it's a little outdated, but there's the mass vaccination sites are at Red Stars, and we in our healthcare facilities in Door, Windsor pharmacies, and grocery stores. So we would end up being a yellow dot on this map if we were to move forward. So what we have proposed for location for the clinic, we actually identified 2 different locations based on what we perceive a need for the 2 towns. A 3-day-a-week clinic, 2 days being morning and afternoon hours, and then 1 day being afternoon and evening hours, so individuals that work full-time can access the clinic after work hours. We identified Memorial School for the daytime clinic hours, and Thornton Burgess School and then for the afternoon clinic. We also have locations identified at Wilburton Nursing Academy and Evangel Assembly Church on Stony Hill as backup. If we need to ramp up in road days, or if one of these sites ends up not working out, based on what we're looking at for needs. So our clinic schedule, like I said, initially we're looking at 3 days, a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or a Monday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, looking at 6 hours for each clinic day, 8 to 2 for that Monday and Friday, and then 1 to 7 for that afternoon into the evening. And these are flexible. This is just what we were kind of proposing initially. And as the supply increases from the Department of Public Health, we can also, in the need for vaccinating more individuals, we can also increase the number of days that we make this clinic available to residents too. So how do people register for an appointment? It's a system called PepMod, which is an online platform. This is a scheduling system. That's what the doc will link somebody to the scheduling system. Online is paperless, a very user-friendly system to be accessed via a laptop or a tablet because it's an online platform. It will enable us to be able to schedule first dose clinics and second dose clinics separately. We pre-screen registrants. There's a bill back to insurance companies if people input their insurance information. The other important thing about this is you're required to report back to the state with any vaccinations that are administered within 72 hours, and this system will do that automatically once the clinic is closed. So there's no worry about having to do a paper trail and having the vaccination over to DPH and stuff. Through this system, it can send email reminders and a link for somebody to schedule their second dose. If we end up links about how to schedule for the vaccine clinic at the Easter Mall, and that's run specifically by that third-party vendor. So this is doing it a little bit differently. This screen shows you what the back-end account looks like and how we would set up our clinics and stuff with users and inventory and that kind of stuff. So, like I said, all the equipment will be run through this Selectmen system. If you go to maimmunizations.org, that brings you to the map once everything is live. They'll all be made through the online platform. And public versus private, this is a little explanation on that. So a public link means that anybody that we identify, if we're going to just do Hampton in Wilbraham, anybody in the town can register for that clinic. If we make it a private clinic, we get a specific URL or link, and that's how you register for the clinic, specifically with that link. We're anticipating a smaller dose of, smaller number of vaccines being available initially, so we may run this out of the senior center initially, and we would identify those individuals to register through a specific link, or they can be manual registered, but you have to have that specific link get emailed to you. That's how all the first responders were able to register for the East Long Meadow Clinic, where they got all their vaccines. If somebody doesn't have computer access, we can also manually enter them the day of the clinic too. So we do have residents that don't have access to computers. We can take down their information and re-register them, or when they show up, we can register them manually too. So that's the nice thing about the system. So this page here is, there's a few screens that show you what your appointment setup will look like. This is just the starter screen for PrepTime, when you can search, the basic look for a clinic, or we would have that specific link for residents to click on. It'll bring you right to Wilbraham's clinic site. Then you go to a personal information screen. This is where you would put in your demographics. The next page goes to health insurance. So right here where it says type of insurance, you can either, if you have insurance, you would put your insurance information there. If somebody doesn't have insurance, there's a spot to select no insurance, and then it just blanks out the whole screen. There's no requirement to have insurance to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. If somebody does put their insurance information in, the state will bill back their insurance for reimbursement, but it's not a requirement to have insurance to receive the vaccine. It's just there's an option so you can put it in. Even though if somebody does have insurance, they can select no insurance. So it doesn't not allow them to register for the vaccine. And then the next piece is your pre-screening questions. These are consistent with what's on the CDC website. And this, what I did was I did a fake registration for myself so I could screenshot these pages for you guys. It's going to ask you if it's your first or second dose, and then there's just a list of questions if you're sick, if you've had exposure, if you've been diagnosed with COVID-19 recently, any reactions to previous vaccines, that kind of stuff. Once somebody finishes these questions, if they answer yes or unknown to one of these questions, it'll flag it so we can kind of star them and re-screen them, make sure that we re-screen those questions the day of the clinic too. And then the next screen is the consent to receive the COVID vaccine. So you select which vaccine you're going to receive, and then you either sign or type your name saying that you agree to receive, you're giving consent to the site to administer the vaccine to you. And then the next page is your verification of all your information, make sure everything is correct. And then the next screen, which is opposite of what the Eastern Mall does, is now it gives you available times to sign up. And if you don't see any availability on this screen, you can always select to go on wait list if that's been activated, or then you can select another time. You can choose another day if you're looking to really get to this one particular menu. Then you might just have to select a different day to sign up for the vaccine. And then after you submit everything, you'll get an email confirmation. And at this point, through your email, you can reschedule or cancel. And if you reschedule, it'll take you back to the system and select the day of time. Or if you cancel it, it'll take you on. So that's about scheduling. Now, the daily operation of our clinic, we have somebody with a check-in station, and this would be registering participants if they have determining where the vaccine can actually be administered to the individual. After the dose is administered, there is a 15-minute monitoring or observation period, so we have somebody who's medically trained just to look for any signs and symptoms of a reaction. If you have somebody that's identified as having some type of health history, we may ask them to wait for 30 minutes instead of the 15. And then once we, clear them for that 15 minutes, there's a checkout station, and that's where everything related to the administration of the vaccine is logged. The vaccinator, the site, any reactions, and the lot number of the vaccine. And that's the information that actually has to go to the state as well. How we're going to staff the clinic. Here's the following rules that we've identified. The site administrator, that'll be the person who's in charge of the overall daily operations of the clinic. 2 to 4 clerical staff, and that's depending on the size of the clinic that we're going to be running. And these are the individuals that are checking residents, verify the information, check them out after they've had their observation. And the medical staff will be comprised of individuals vaccinating. They could either be preparing the doses or actually administering vaccines themselves. And then people to observe. And then we've started in logistical staff, which could be, if we're running, a clinic where we look like we're going to be low on doses, we may need somebody to run back to get additional doses to move over to the site for the rest of the clinic day. And we have reached out to a few local organizations in addition to our, our town staff of fire, police, public health. That includes K-State EMS, municipal pharmacy, their students, PA students from Central College, staff, alumni, and parents of World Convention Academy. And then we've already gotten some inquiries from the residents of Camden and Wilbraham to be volunteers. So we will, if we get the go-ahead, we'll be putting a Google form for residents to fill out indicating their qualifications, medical or non-medical, to help with volunteering to staff the clinic. And then other options for staff in school nursing, I reached out to the dean of the school, and they would love to come and help. They just need to work out a school instructor. And then one of our officers, our EMS coordinator, Matt Sterling, who is potentially going to reach out to security and vaccine needs to be stored specific. Here the vaccine requires a specific controlled temperature, so these are the ranges where it can be stored. It would be delivered frozen, and then it can be held for 6 months at a frozen temperature, refrigerated for 30 days. Day of the clinic, we can take it out of the fridge and stay at a room temperature pretty much for 12 hours, but then we can put it back in the fridge. It needs to be in some type of controlled temperature. We are identified the fire department as the location for the storage because they can keep the freezer on generator power. And that's also what was identified for the deliveries of the vaccines. You need to. And then security. I'm starting to edit this when I got put into sharing. But the most of the identification we've made for this category is just for traffic detail when we get to larger sites. One of the 2 schools that we may have, 200 to 300 cars coming in, we might just we end up probably needing somebody from the police, 1 or 2 police officers to help with traffic control and stuff. That was the biggest concern, not so much in the street, but more on the traffic for with cars and that kind of stuff driving. Training is mandatory for anybody that's volunteering or anybody that's working in the clinic. There's specific trainings that are provided by the state that the fire department has already started that in-house for the handling the vaccine and administering the actual vaccine itself. And then anybody working with the CAPAD system, there's some additional training to learn how to use that system with checking on and checking out. And there's something to do with during the clinic. So communication, that was brought up a couple weeks ago about how we're going to communicate this to residents of both towns. The big use will be the town's website, Blackboard messaging. One came through in Wilbraham last night, indicating that we're not ready right now, but we are in decision phases. We will look at the different websites for the different departments in the town, for the access, science, like DPW, potentially post town, social media accounts that a lot of the departments have in the town. A lot of the seniors have been calling into the senior centers for both towns, so the information can come out to them. Newspapers, bulletins, community, that kind of stuff. So the next step for the whole process, the first is to verify all the and that would be the person that's responsible for the daily operations for the individual clinic. We're also looking at the need for technology devices and that to run the online platform of during the vaccine clinics themselves. The storage, we've identified the fire department has the site, appliances to store them in. Their fire department does have a refrigerator where we'd be looking at potentially putting a freezer as well. And then protective gear, the state does provide a minimal amount of PPE items, so we can order a supply of gloves, masks, and containers. And then signage, there's white signs that I'm pretty sure both towns already have that were issued by the state for these mask sites. That we just have to locate those. I believe Lori knows where they are. And then we can look, she can just say that DPW would have the ability to create some additional signs if needed. So I believe that's the end of my slide presentation. So I'm gonna stop sharing. I can figure it out.
Okay. Well, although since this is a joint meeting with our friends from Hamden, why don't I turn the floor over to my counterpart chairman and he can entertain questions from his end to start this off. So, Mr. Davenport, you have the floor.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, good. The first question I have is, are all these volunteers?
It'll be probably a mixture of paid staff and volunteers. The fire department has identified, I want to say 15 to 20 of their paramedics that are interested in helping out staffing with the vaccine clinic. And then there's two others in town that would be that are willing to help out with staffing purposes. If there's no end of it, we'd be looking for some additional help. The schools of medicine, the Western England, and they will be providing volunteers. But so it'll be a mixture of both.
Who pays the paid staffers?
So the paid staff, everything. So the paid staff would actually go through reimbursement through the CARES fund. And so it would be whatever the if it's expired, and it's the whatever the agreed upon with the union, their rates and that kind of stuff. Thinking the police for volunteers, for vaccine. There's been a reach out from community members just wanting to help out.
Okay. And who gets the money from the insurance companies for the administration fee? I think it's $24 a shot. Okay, John.
One quick question. I know we asked Bob to check with the school committee a couple of weeks ago about using Thornton Burgess. Have we heard back from them yet? We did? Oh.
And so superintendent had just said, let them know what we need for location, and they would make it happen over there.
Okay.
Well, I don't have a question, but I'd like to compliment Jill and her team for putting such a thorough plan together and reaching out to us to have you join you. And hopefully it's all going to work out well. So congratulations.
Do you need any volunteer immunizers? I know a guy who does it. Okay. I'll see if I can contact this guy and see if he wants to do it. Well, I use the same one. I try to save the company money, you know? All right. No. No, I think we're good.
In the future. Well, one quick thing, Bob. In the future, we're going to be discussing, moving on a replacement possibly for Lori. We'd like to get together with your board on that, or perhaps have the chairmen of the two boards of health maybe should start that conversation.
All right. Thank you. Your board? Yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay.
So I would just ask if, as you're looking at sites, to keep that in mind, if they are long hallways, if you could get some wheelchairs that senior centers are probably borrow, but just to have those available. But I kind of concerned with talking about that as required in locations that were indoors. So just to keep that in mind. Yep, we will. Yeah, we claim to have a couple of wheelchairs available at the sites in case an individual is, struggling to get back up to their car after they're done. Initially, with the lower supply going to these smaller sites from the state, it's identified that each site will have about 100 doses a week for the next 3 or so weeks until the supply chain increases. So we put out the idea of running 2 or 3 weeks directly out of the senior center because of the lower numbers, and that's the group that will be identified first. So we would, until we get a larger volume of vaccines coming into the town, that's when we're expanding out to these these 2 sites to run it as a 3-day clinic. But initially, we're looking at probably we can just do it in 1 day and get a group of seniors over and done with in 1 day at a location that they're familiar with.
Don, do we need do we need something formal from our board to go ahead and endorse this? I think we should.
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You hear me now? Okay. Jill, thank you. The other question I have is, do we have any avenues for the less tech-savvy citizens to get a hold of making an appointment? I mean, I think the website's great, but I think there's a lot of people out there that don't have access to that or the ability to get to it themselves. Yeah, so you don't have to register directly through the website. We can manually register somebody. So if it's somebody that would normally access the senior center, they can get all of their information, and we can manually register that through the senior center. Or when we open it up to the 3-day week and it's a larger number of vaccines, I believe there's an option to put a phone number where somebody can call or and get the information. But there's a way that we can get those individuals registered on the back end so that they don't have to worry about not having computer access. So we'll make sure that it's available to anybody and everybody. We're also looking at identifying the individuals that are homebound through the senior center too, and doing an off-site, in-home vaccination too as well through the senior center. That those individuals identified folks too. Thank you. I know you touched a little bit on that in the past. I just want to go further question. Thank you, Joe. Great job.
You're welcome.
Hey, and Bob, just to your question, only the extensive list of those people that, and Chief Andrews as well, people that might need assistance, and they're going to keep pretty close tabs on that going forward. Joe, I have a quick question for you. The question on everybody's mind is, I be eligible? Does the software give you any insight as to the progress that we're making as we go through the different levels of eligibility?
No, and that comes from the state, like that's dictated from the governor and from, he's the one that ultimately makes the decision as how we're gonna move through phase two. When we're able to open it up to, group two of phase two. And that, I think he touched on today during his press conference, and they'll look at, what they see coming in for registered vaccinations that have been administered. And if they want to move through into the next group, but we know the numbers roughly of how many residents are in that 75 plus group and how many we're able to reach. And then also the information that Paula has with the residents that she's helped register, like at the Eastville Law site. I know last week they were more successful with getting those people registered. But we won't be able to move to the next group in phase two until the green light is given from the state. So.
Okay, very good. Before we part ways here tonight, we do need a motion down there concerning Andrews. If you want to give us the background, and then I didn't get a chance to review it.
It's an option for the board to consider making known that Chief Andrews would be our main point of contact and as the emergency management director. It was really sort of an afterthought for the motions. I did have a chance to speak to Joe briefly about it.
We need a form of.
We don't have a wait on that.
Should Barry Ellen, you make it, and I second against the Board of Health?
Well, it's not Board of Health, I'm just saying, Jeff is no longer here, we should make a motion. After.
I'll entertain a motion for the COVID clinic. Bob, if you're prepared to make one.
Certainly. Move to approve the establishment and operation of a municipal-run COVID-19 clinic with the town of Camden to serve residents of both communities.
Second.
Roll call vote. Chairman Russell?
Aye.
Selectman Boiler?
Aye.
Selectman Brennan?
Aye.
We should take this on our Zoom.
Okay,
Our board is going to make a motion also.
But we're going to do it in our meeting so that our residents get a chance to see it in our Zoom presentation. But let you know that I think, I can speak for the board right here, we're all in favor of moving forward with that. And if you want to really enjoy it, you can watch it on Zoom, on YouTube tomorrow.
I'll make a note of it, John. Thank you. With that, we'll say goodnight to
Thank you.
friends from Camden, and you have a meeting.
Thank you. Good night. Good night.
Thank you, guys. See ya.
You're still being recorded.
And a lot of that, and that was just boilerplate off the state website.
You know what? I don't care.
No, Jill's all right. She didn't mind that. All right, so
Now I was going.
I'm just closing the mail and go back to Zoom.
There we are.
There we go.
We're back.
You miss us.
All right, we're back. Not working, but we're back. There we go. Okay, we're back.
After the meeting with Wilbraham, I'd like to thank them for the terrific PowerPoint presentation given by Jill of the state information. I'd like to make a motion for the town of Hamden to join in the municipal COVID-19 clinic to be established in both communities. I believe starting February 22nd, Bob, was that the date she had?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
John, I.
Donald, aye.
Mary Ellen, aye.
Further to that, we had an emergency management director, Chief Farnsworth. With his resignation, we have kind of a gap. I'd like the board to consider appointing Jane Bedinkowitz in that position for the remainder of the interim chief's position until such time as we consider continuing it in the police chief role or looking at something different.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. All right. All right, the next item on the agenda, we got our budgets to go over here. Fire department budget. Fire department budget. I mean, all of the budgets we're receiving are missing because we're waiting for the Collins report for the salary type thing. So there's no, every salary is last year's salary.
I do appreciate the fire, the expense line, they held it.
Right. Yeah, the expense line was held. Yeah.
Certainly in consideration of the capital part at the bottom.
Yeah. By one tire a year is a suggestion. All right, let's see.
I had a discussion with the chief about that, and would like to put that off the capital plan, because when we buy all the tires, we're talking about an eye-popping sum.
Right. So we need to get we need to talk to the advisory committee, and we need to get the Collins report to see what we're going to do about those.
I think that's
salaries.
I think we want a joint meeting with advisory to
Right.
review all the comments. That's going to affect budgets that go to them directly.
Yep, I agree.
Any questions on the fire department budget? Okay. The next budget we quick look at is what are these? I
Senior
know,
Center.
I'm skipping over that. Council on Aging.
Hey, thanks.
Council on Aging. Okay.
I do have a quick question. So the expense line you held pretty well. Tracking so far, is it tracking pretty well with the numbers you have? I mean, building utilities. It's tough to say. I know utilities is probably down because of usage. You don't have people coming in during the summer. The air conditioning wasn't running as much. So are these numbers dependent on, to use the word, a normal year?
Yes, they are dependent on a normal year. Certainly, we've seen some decrease. I mean, a significant decrease in usage. The utility line, however, because of the solar kickback that Cliff can tell you more about, he divides that between 4 departments or some such thing. So there's really not ever a way for me to know what my electric bill is, if you will. But I discussed my line item with him at length, and he definitely was in favor of that 2.5 increase, just because of utility expenses. There is the potential that this year we could see a little bit going back into the general fund, just because we were closed. I mean, obviously staff is there, but we're not lighting the entire building and that. But that's the difficulty with that expense line item, is that solar catchment, he divides that up when he looks at the bills.
And we've received the feasibility study for expansion.
Yes.
I assume that'll go to capital planning as well.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anything else?
Nope.
Thank you.
Thank you, Becky.
Go ahead.
Sure.
Wanna say something?
I just had a note. I wanted to note on the grant funding that we receive. The Title III-B grant, we're in the 3rd year of a 3-year grant cycle, and I will be reapplying for funds there. It's just a tough fiscal year all around. So I'm hopeful that grant would be level funded again. That pays a portion of the outreach coordinator's salary. The formula grant funding has been reduced per the governor's budget. So whereas we were receiving $12 per elder, that has been reduced back down to $9 per elder. So we would see a decrease in that line item if the census numbers aren't released as they should be. So there was some discussion that census numbers, because of everything that's going on, might not be released in a timely fashion. However, if they are released, we won't see too much of a financial loss. We will gain a significant number of older adults. So that will balance things out a little bit, even with the reduction back down to $9. But I'm pretty certain that that line item will still be able to fund the program coordinator. And there were no mid-year cuts in the current fiscal year. I know we had talked about that back in the time when all of this COVID started, but we didn't see any mid-year cuts. So that line item will maintain full funding for this current fiscal year.
Okay, thank you. Okay. And the tree warden budget. Right, we got 95% of the troubled trees are gone. And so we're back down to our normal figure of what? 49,000? 50,000?
I did notice it went up. I think it's just because I think we just keep trying to bump up the higher tree service.
Yeah.
Stay a little ahead
Not
of it.
ahead of it, right, right.
Not a huge jump.
Okay.
And certainly we've learned. That's where it's gonna
Yeah.
go.
Okay. Okay. Let's see, we got selectmen's reports.
No, I was just going to mention, when I was telling you about the Board of Health before, we did have a discussion about the health agent and have asked Mr. Markle to continue his meetings with Wilbraham, Munson, Hamden, and possibly Eat Long Meadow, because they've expressed an interest in joining us. And we've given we'd like the new health agent to be in place by July 1st, so that there'd be a transition period between her and Laura, she, and Laurie for a month there. And we did establish some guidelines for, a calendar for when these things would happen, so that by April, Mr. Markle would have researched the options of how we can go. We have our own, we could partner with other towns, whatever. The board takes a vote, and then we post for, and do interviews and hire the person, which we will come back to you with. We also had some discussion about the nurse position and whether we would include that as a request to the selectmen for a budget item. For the immediate future, it's COVID money that would be paying her, and we would assume that's going to go through December. It may go longer than that, who the heck knows? So it's a very hard, but it is not, it also is not a high budget item, because it goes 5 hours a week, and it's just having, it's what it was. So Jane is going to look into her salary and what the cost would be for doing that, and I can bring that to you when we know that. That's it for Board of Health.
That's right, John.
Quickly, the planning board did not meet this week. However, I did talk to Gary Wayner. I think, Don, you had reported the same thing that I did here at planning. There will be an update for a bylaw for stormwater in the coming. One thing I did suggest is that I think now is a good time to start developing a list of these proposed warrant articles we have, either placeholders or locked in for constant tickle file in our folder.
Town administrative report.
Okay, we have an impact bargaining session scheduled for tomorrow. More about that in the executive session. The posting for police chief has been done. We have 3 applicants, all internal at this point. We finished with the municipal vulnerability project sessions on the 28th. That was Thursday. Another 4-hour session. I did receive the link today, which I'm going to pass on to the board tomorrow. It's really both of those sessions are well worth your time. You may not be able to watch 8 hours worth, but I found them very interesting. And clearly they are on the right track to explore areas of town that are vulnerable to severe weather and to get the town ready to apply for some funding to try and make some corrections. I did view Governor Baker's Community One Stop for Growth video conference That is mostly for grants, not mostly, entirely for grants related to economic development. So if we have a project to bring additional economic development to the town, this is a one-stop shop. You fill out one application, and it entitles you to be eligible for, I think, 6 different state grant programs related to economic development. Also, we were just mentioning, there was a video conference on the 29th with Hamden, Wilbraham, and Longmeadow. Munson was supposed to be included, but the town administrator has departed for another town. But we still think that they would have an interest in some kind of collaborative relationship for the hiring of a replacement for our current person when she retires. The press release that was requested is in your packet. Police union negotiations are postponed until March 1st. I think I mentioned this last time. That's because the IBPO union has been decertified and there's a new police union, the New England Police Benevolent Association. They have been certified. So you have in your packet the contract for the police union and also now for the police chief. So we'll have to set aside some time in an executive session sometime towards the end of this month to go over issues in the current contract that are of concern to the chief or to management in general. I did share the financial folder on the OneDrive with the advisory committee. They have access to that one only, but they have access to all the budget information that we have, as well as there's a capital subfolder in there and a debt subfolder. The east of the Connecticut River, 5-town Chamber of Commerce is inviting members.
What date was that?
I put the.
Is it February or March?
It's in February, I believe.
Sticks in my mind, yeah.
I have it here. Let me. It's the 18th.
Okay.
And it's at 3 o'clock.
All right.
And there was a flyer, I think it was in your packets last week. All I would suggest is if you're going to be able to do it, respond to them, because they'd like to know who's attending. And that is the report. Our on the upcoming, because of the snow, our meeting tomorrow on garage expansion is pushed off. Okay.
Thank you. We have I'll entertain a motion for an executive session to conduct a strategy session in preparation for negotiation with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining session or contract with non-union personnel, which would be the decision of the new chief of police, what their contract would look like, as well as to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting declared that this would be impact bargaining with the dispatcher.
Without a return to open session?
Without a return to open session.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
John Flynn, aye.
Donald Davenport, aye.
Mary Ellen Glover, aye.
What? Smoke and mirrors?
The, with the electricity.
I'm not quite sure what that means.
The way Cliff is doing the
Oh, no.
utility bill.
Thank you. Next meeting will be next Monday, the 8th, right?
Yes.
Then we have a Tuesday. Thank you all.
Thank you.